Hi, everybody. This is Venkat from Simply Coach, and you're listening to the Growth Dialogues podcast, the show that brings together experts in coaching, therapy, and consulting from around the world. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of our Growth Dialogues. Very pleased to invite our guest for the day, David Sherrod. Hi, David.
Hello, Venkat. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Thanks for joining. So, as I get the pleasure of introducing coaches in the show, this one is very, very different. So, if you look at David's profile, he's a CVPCC, he's an ICF PCC working towards an MCC, he's a high ground leadership pathfinder. So, you would think he'll call himself a business coach, an executive coach, or something like that. But he calls himself a modern day alchemist, right? Working with clients, what he calls a magical process of transformation, co creation, and combination. David, I have to start off by asking why alchemy?
It's really actually funny. I went to and actually teach at one of the schools founded by Thomas Leonard, who we kind of credit with founding coaching. And when I went through the program, it was a life coaching school, and I'm not a fan of the term life coach. And I don't
Okay.
even know why. Like, I don't even have a good reason why. It's just not, I just don't like the term. And now, actually, we talk about human connection transformation coaching, and that fits better. But that didn't exist at the time. I was looking for something else to call myself. I do work with executives in business. It's why I actually got into coaching. My first coaching experiences were intact teams. So, business coach or executive coach might have seemed appropriate. Certainly, leadership coach after getting the higher ground leadership pathfinder status. Uh, but one day I'm in my home office and I had a Harry Potter movie playing in the other room as I was just kind of in the office just doing some stuff, and it was like lunch or something. And in the movie, Hermione Granger remarks that Nicholas Flamel was a famous alchemist. And for some reason, the word alchemist just kind of like beelined into my ear, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's it! I'm an alchemist. Instead of turning base metals into gold, I turn people's base lives into something extraordinary," which is relates also to a Thomas Leonard quote about coaching making healthy people extraordinary. And I thought really funny. I thought it was brilliant. I'm like, oh my God, no one has ever thought of this. And then I get on the web and I start doing a web search, and I come across the book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. A great book I now send to some of my clients, and realize that, there's a lot, of alchemists out there of various types, and the idea of change resonates. And actually, I've talked about transformation, but we use transmutation in the word of alchemy, and say, like, is that a thing? Ultimately, it's an opportunity to talk about what change people want in their life, how I kind of like the main character, well, the main supporting character, the mentor in The Alchemist, support people as they're going through their changes. And for me, that's quite exciting. So I call myself a modern day alchemist, and I grabbed the domain alchemist.coach to make it easy for people to find me.
Yeah. So, as I looked at your profile, there's a lot of corporate work there. You worked in some of the world's largest financial companies. So, when did you start thinking about getting to be a coach? How did that thought process come?
Yeah. Great. Thank you for asking, because it's been a journey. A couple fits and starts, right? Sometimes people think, oh, you go and you make a decision, and you just go do it, and life
Mhm.
doesn't really work that way. So all the way back in 1996, I was getting my MBA, and
Mhm.
I was exposed to a number of instruments, a number of assessments that were part of the program, designed to help us understand who we were in a newly designed program that was going to balance finance and math and marketing and sales with personal aspects and more creative aspects. One of those instruments was the Herman Brain Dominance instrument, the
Mm-hmm.
HBDI. And I was so enamored of it because it helped explain why I was in a technical, area, technical background business, but I'm a high D, super creative, super, pie in the sky, big ideas person. And nobody that I was working with kind of resonated the same way. And now I had an understanding of why that might be, that this idea of mental diversity was important. So I went and got certified because that's me. That's the thing I do is I get more education. And I began working and sharing this with people that I was working with. So I started coaching intact teams around the HBDI. And I didn't even know it was called coaching. It was just debriefing the instrument. But one of my favorite quotes, a person who later became a mentor said, "This has forever changed the way I lead people." So I knew it was
Mm-hmm.
very impactful and that I had a piece of that. Fast forward 8 years, and I may have 7 years. I was downsized and trying to figure out what to do. And I had been working with a business coach myself and had been told, "Hey, you probably would make a great coach." And so
Mm-hmm.
I then got certified in a DISC instrument, and actually two, one behaviors, one values, and said, "Okay, I now, this is a horrible way to coach, but my attitude was, if you have a problem, I have these instruments and we'll solve your problem through these instruments." Not coaching, but a lot of debriefing. And amazingly, I got some clients and I had some good impacts, but not enough to sustain my livelihood. And then after 30 years, 3 decades of corporate life, I really wanted to do something different. I was seriously thinking about going back to school to get a PhD. And an opportunity came up to work with someone who wanted my skill set in basically a startup. That didn't turn out the way that we kind of hoped it would, but through that process, I ended up reaching out to Coachville, becoming a student there, and really learning how to coach properly. And like I said, I now teach there, which is amazing. But the decision when I was at that 30-year point of looking back and saying, "Hey, I've still got 20 years of work. I want to enjoy it. I want to do something that really makes me happy, that I'm good at, that can be rewarding, that can make an impact in other people's lives." And I was in program and project management and portfolio management and ultimately really people management. And when I looked
Mm-hmm.
back over that career, I said, well, the thing I'm proudest of is the work I've done with other people and helping them be more successful in what they're trying to accomplish. And that led me back to coaching, to Coachville, and to where now I'm 6 years into an amazing vocation. And I don't know that I'll ever retire. I'll just reduce hours as I get older.
It's an amazing story. And what strikes me, and some of the people who are watching this podcast who aspire to be a coach, some of them tell me that is there a formula for becoming a coach? And here is a great case that you kept learning. And I like the fact that you said that I didn't even realize the label of coaching for it. I was debriefing, I was doing some assessments. And along the line, you're a coach. So it's very, very authentic, David. I think that resonates with me because the experience that you've got to the table, obviously, your clients saw a lot of value. And you're a coach, or I must say, an alchemist who got that right. So, as you go through this journey and you've been through this, and for some of the aspiring coaches who are out there, what would be the sort of three tips, tricks, get rights that you would tell them, get it right or watch out for these? What would some of those learnings that you would pass on to wannabe coaches?
Yeah, great question. And I wish I had maybe had gotten some of that information earlier. My career may have changed and come to this sooner. First, get a coach, right? Have a coach, have someone that you're working with to help you realize your dream, your aspirations. Hopefully, they will also model for you good coaching. But even if at least you get a result of support as you're trying to make this change to become a coach, become a different person, would be good. Develop trust with people. Be somebody who follows through on what you say. Certainly, from a standpoint of working with someone, if you want a client and they don't trust you, they're not going to make changes, and you're not going to have the result and the impact that you want in the world. So you have to be a trusting and trusted person. So
Yeah.
walk your talk, be vulnerable, and then finally be, honest. I think there's a lot of people out there who will throw a cap on and say, I'm a coach. I can coach you. I have experience. And what it really is mentoring, or they're selling a program
Mm-hmm.
and saying, I know this program. And when you go to somebody, you can say, hey, do I have a program? Do I have techniques? Do I have methods? Yes. But what this is about you. And so I'm not going to pull on those methods and techniques and programs unless it seems like they will support you. And having that kind of willingness to say, it might take us a while to co-create and figure out how best for you to move forward, but we're going to do that together. And I'll put everything I have behind it, and I'll go and I'll get more if I need to. It's one of the things I love about really good coaches is they think about their clients and figure out, like, what does that person need and where do I get that so I can be in a position to better support them. Not to give them answers, but just to be the person who can support them on their journey. I think those would probably be the three most
Yeah,
important things.
absolutely. I think resonates. Get yourself a coach first and develop the trust with the client. And the point about being authentic and co-creating, I think, so great learnings that you've passed on. Thank you for that. So, I guess a lot of us do one-on-one coaching with clients. There are a few who also do group coaching. Uh, have you had an opportunity to do group coaching? Do you think that works better than one-on-one? What are your thoughts on that?
I do group coaching. I actually I put a group coaching program together called the Alchemist Foundry. It uses the ideas of environmental design, but also a lot of things about helping people just realize goal attainment, and
Mm-hmm.
mixes them all together into one program. The benefit of the group is support from each other, sometimes insights that I might not know, but someone else will be like, oh, hey, I'm really curious about this. Try to cultivate an environment where those kinds of shares can occur. That somebody can share something, they're not going to get judged, but someone else will be like, oh, that kind of brings up this thought. What about this? And of course, I can do that as well with more people at once. The other thing is sometimes I will coach something around somebody, coach someone around something, and then someone else in the group will be like, "Oh yeah, that impacts me too." Right? You answered my question, even though I didn't know I had that question. So,
Yeah.
the benefits definitely there. In almost every group, I have another group coaching program called Your Acceleration Group for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing I do for both of them is I also add some element of individual coaching to that, so that they can get the benefit of the group, but also get the benefit of that individual time to really potentially go deeper than they might be willing to in a group.
Mm-hmm.
And then also to get additional challenges. Like sometimes I'll even hold myself back in a group. Like I really want to challenge somebody in this way, but they might be able to accept that challenge, but others in the group are maybe not quite there yet, and they might be put off a little bit by the challenge.
Mm.
And so having those one-on-one times, usually just once a month, sometimes twice, to support in addition to the group activities, I think is kind of a neat recipe for success for the
Excellent.
clients.
So it's a nice blend you have there. There is group and there is individual as well. So yeah, get that. And moving to another topic, where do you see technology in the coaching practice? the process as well. What's been your experience of using technology?
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere, and my background actually is technology. Like I started as a developer, so
Mm.
it's fascinating to watch. Um, I had a phrase that I used to use all the time: "Better living through technology." Right? And
Mhm.
that just was any science. Like if science could help me in my life, then I'm all in. Right? Um, when I first started coaching, when I let me rephrase that. When I started learning how to really coach at school, I read The Prosperous Coach, and one of the little vignettes in there talks about what um, uh, this item called the lamppost metaphor. And the idea of the lamppost metaphor was that you could walk out of your this is pre-pandemic, right? You walk out of your workplace, you walk up to a lamppost, you tell the lamppost about your day. You're going to get value out of that, even though the lamppost can't ask you any questions, it can't share
Mhm.
any insights, give you any different perspective, challenge you. The fact of you just talking it out loud can help you. So when I think about AI, and even going back to like the Elisa programs, which will just ask you questions, like you'd say something you're like, oh, that's interesting, and then ask you basically the same thing back, right? It's a level of interaction above the lamppost, right? Because you might consider it like, okay, that's a legitimate question. Let me think about the answer. Or let me share that again with the AI. And the AIs get more and more, you know, not insightful, but they ask good questions, and they can ask good questions. They don't. The focus seems to be a lot on why or how could you. But that isn't what coaching is entirely limited to. We certainly ask why. We certainly ask what could be possible or how could something happen, especially if we're helping someone design an experiment or an action to take. But we also can sense emotions. We can track back with a long-term client to how they were feeling over time and how that has changed, and bring that up for them,
Yeah.
and inquire about that. I think the human connection was what makes us human. I don't know. Will AI never get there? I don't know. Maybe it will. Science fiction certainly says it will. But there may be a place for people who aren't sure about coaching, or who, for whatever reason can't access a coach. That AI can come in and help them. Just at least ask them some questions, or push them a little bit in ways they weren't thinking of otherwise. But it won't replace a human being and the capacity that a well-trained human being has to bring those additional human and emotional elements into the equation.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that how many clients would be comfortable with the fact that what is essentially a very private, confidential conversation is going to be used for learning,
Yeah,
and I'm going to be a my data is going to be shown to everybody in some sense, masked or otherwise. So,
yeah,
and like we keep using this word trust, and I think you brought it up as one of the most important things. And if you tell your client like, great, you're going to trust me, and by the way, I'm going to record this conversation and use it to improve my algorithm. I'm not sure how that plays out. So
I
I
hope
think
it
I'm
would
in
play
your
out poorly.
I'm in your camp on this, David.
Yeah.
So just to round off this conversation, and I think you brought up a few quotes earlier as well. And would like to know what would be a very favorite coaching quote that you've come across that you could share with some of our listeners.
Yeah. I have two, and I mentioned part of one. Thomas Leonard, he actually, this is at the top of my webpage. He said, "Coaching doesn't make sick people well; it helps healthy people become extraordinary." And it's funny. I wish I had known the quote very early in my coaching. I
Hmm.
had asked somebody for a reference, and they said, "Well, that person's the president of this organization. They don't need a coach. They're fine." The person who I'd asked was a pediatrician, and I could have turned around and quipped, "Oh, my neighbor just had twins. They're healthy. They don't need a pediatrician." Right? I wasn't fast enough on my feet then. Um, but the idea that talks about in that, it's like, it's coaching is not to cure something; it's to make something incredible. extraordinary, like help you reach beyond yourself. And then the second quote speaks to that specifically. Tom Landry, who was a coach for an American Football League, the Dallas Cowboys, he said, "A coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, who has you see what you don't want to see, so you can be who you have always known you could be."
Wow.
And that idea, like you're going to work with someone who is absolutely going to challenge you. And a good coach can do that in a safe space, supportive space, and still have you leaving a session, maybe not the aha in the session. Maybe it takes some pondering, meditation, journaling, something after, but to really have you challenge your perspectives about something is incredible.
That's an incredible insight and probably a great way to end this chat, David. So thank you very much for being very generous with your time and sharing it with all of us. And your three get rights absolutely resonated. And thank you very much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Venkat, for the opportunity. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Growth Dialogues. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you enjoy your podcast.